You've had some experience in the Nationwide Series, doing some partial seasons. Just talk about what you expect running for first full time in Nationwide.
Well, first off, what you see below me is what we're about to talk about in written form. For those of you that don't like to read, we're going to talk about it right here on video and on YouTube. With that said, you said something about my experience in Nationwide?
Just talk about running your first full time. You've had experience in Nationwide Series, but talk about what it's going to be like to be full time in the Nationwide Series.
Well, any young driver coming up in all the series here in NASCAR, the top three, you look for one opportunity, and that's to be full time. And obviously, I'd had sprinkled events throughout the last 3 years in the Nationwide Series and had a lot of success, but I was never able to break in full time and was actually able to race full time in the Capable Truck Series. I feel like my time in the Capable Truck Series has led me to the point where almost winning the championship last year, or coming up a little bit short, finishing fifth, and fighting for wins week in, week out, has got me to the point where I felt like moving up to Nationwide Series was the next step in my career, and hopefully one day racing the Sprint Cup Series on Sundays. So doing it with Cowboys Motorsports, Toyota, and everyone here involved is a really exciting thing for me because it's a family I've become a part of late last year, and they've embraced me very well, and hopefully we can go out there and have the success that we all look forward to having.
Let's talk about your first NASCAR win was on a super speedway. First race of the year on a super speedway. Does that give you some confidence going into this race?
Well, absolutely. Anytime you can win any type of track that we race on, from short tracks to mile and a half to super speedways, if you can win on one of those, it gives you more confidence going into the next event at which that type of track that you race at. Funny enough, I find a lot of times that my prowess was mostly on the mile and a half, where I really was had a lot of great finishes, a lot of top fives. So to get that win on a super speedway, where my mom calls them drafting races that she doesn't like, to go out there and get that win on the super speedway was kind of one of those things that kind of, after that, you have a lot more confidence going into those races. And that, as you said, going to Daytona this year in the Nationwide car, I have a lot of confidence in being able to, make the right choices on the racetrack in super speed racing, and hopefully put ourselves in a position there at the end and go for the win.
You in the trucks, there wasn't really a lot of the tandem stuff. Have you talked to Eric and talked about, do you think you'll see some of that this year, or do you think it'll be more like the truck races have been?
Well, it really depends on the weather. The package that NASCAR has set up for us in the Nationwide Series does lend itself a little bit to the two-car tango, they like to say, or the two-car tandem, however you want to call it. And I think, watching last year's Nationwide race, you saw a lot of that. The package really hasn't changed that much. Now, when we saw the July race, it was a lot hotter. They were not able to do the two-car tango as much because of the heat. The engines would overheat too quickly. I actually was able to use the two-car tango at Talladega in my first truck win to get to the lead. So I think it's something that I've been well versed in. I've been able to test with it a lot, not really race as much, but obviously one of the biggest things rely on being able to go to Kyle, our owner, and talk to him about it, since he's been a little bit more, raced a lot more with the two-car tango, and also talking to Eric and everyone in our team about what we want to see the race car do to be ready for that two-car tango. And sure enough, come the last 5-10 laps, you'll definitely be using it to go for the win.
What, being at your first full-time year in Nationwide, what are your expectations? What are your goals you've set for the season?
Goals for the season. Well, I don't like to have expectations. I like to have, as you said, goals and sort of a benchmark for our team. And I think a lot of ways, being a brand new team, Eric Phillips obviously being a very winning guy in trucks, coming up Nationwide for the first time, myself going to Nationwide for the first time, this being the second year for the KBM Nationwide program, I feel like improving on last year. So last year they finished 7th or 8th in owners points. I feel like for us a very realistic thing would be go into Homestead hopefully in the top 5 in points. If we're able to do that, it'd be a very successful season, garner that with some wins, and we'd definitely be proud of the effort that we put in as a standalone Nationwide team at the second highest level of our sport.